Warming of the belly.
You feel it?
Oh yeah.
Kidney tonic. So welcome everyone. We are here for our full moon discourse. This is number 6.
6 or 7.
Up there. We started goat moon.
Goat, monkey, rooster. 7.
Now, you guys see something? Seanan just counted with his fingers.
True.
Do you know the way to count by your digits?
Oh, not been talked about. What are you talking about exactly?
So you start
square?
with your base ring,
Mhm.
then you go towards the index. So 1, 2, 3. This is winter,
Right.
right? These 3 are winter, and then you have rat, ox, tiger, rabbit, dragon, snake, horse, goat, monkey, rooster, dog, pig. And it kind of goes around here.
Fascinating. No, I've never been taught that.
Wow. So when I lived in China, one of my uncles,
Yeah.
the monks,
Yeah.
every morning I'd say, yo, how hot is it going to be today? And he'd like calculate on his fingers. He'd be like, 38 degrees Celsius. Sure enough, he'd be right. I think he just entertained me and, saw the weather forecast. But this guy actually won the lottery like once a month.
Oh,
He would win the local lottery and
Yeah.
he would do divination on his hand.
numerology is basically what it's all about.
Okay. So we got more people in our waiting rooms. Let me see if I can do this from here. Got it.
That wind is insane.
Yeah. Oh my God, dude, this is the biggest full moon talk.
Maybe they're here for something else. Did you go on the seminar?
All right. Well, guys, so without any further ado, what is ado anyway? Anyway, without any further of that, without any further ado, here we are, Shakespearean. It's a very Shakespearean night. There's a literal storm going on outside. I think this is the closest thing San Francisco has had to a typhoon in ever. And since El Nino, it was like back in the 90s, we had El Nino. I think this is probably one of the
Water
biggest.
Tiger's really making a statement.
Going out with a bang, huh?
Yeah, tail of the tail of
the tail of the tiger is supposed to be the nastiest part. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Mm.
And it's also like water ox. So yeah, it's pretty fascinating.
And we're going into a yin water rabbit.
Right. And it just I was talking about this with one of my colleagues, Brooke, that the 2 water rabbit years prior, many floods. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So I mean, like, it could be, yeah. Man, hopefully we get that snow, like replenish the water stock. Lake Mead maybe rise and cover up all the dead bodies.
It's that kind of party. That kind of party. Well, welcome, Tiana. We're recording. It's okay. It's okay. Speaking of floods, right down the street, Golf Links Road is closed. And right at the head of Golf Links is the Oakland Zoo, which has a sinkhole. You guys Googled the news? Anybody? But yeah, like a huge sinkhole right at the gate of Oakland Zoo. And it's right down the hill.
I came up Keller.
Yeah, Keller to Skyline.
Yeah, cut over there.
Yeah.
Did you see the tree that's down at the top of the turn?
I just missed it.
Yeah. Oh, well, that must be
It's wild out there. So guys, stay warm, stay dry. Stay dry is important because sugar melts. I'm from Richmond. That was the perfect one. All right, so ox moon, full moon, last full moon of our lunar new year. That's kind of a big deal. Full moon, lunar new year, put it together. What's happening, Seanan?
So a lot of water. Not surprisingly. Yeah. gosh, it's been pretty much, it's been a lot of overwhelm because it's, for me particularly, just because I'm trying to get ducks in a row for talking about the water rabbit year. But yes, this is the last full moon of the water tiger year. And the next full moon will be the tiger moon in the water rabbit year. So there'll be 13 moons next year. It's like we talked about it before. We can't say it enough. There will be 2 rabbit moons in the rabbit year. So that's a whole lot of sensitivity. So if you're already feeling sensitive, that's kind of what's up right now.
Tender moments.
Tender moments, many tender moments.
So this is the snowflake season.
Yeah. Well, it's so I'm an academic kind of nerd before I ever came to Chinese astrology, and studied philosophy up on the hill, Cal, and studied with like Kwong Lo Shun and a couple other academics, paid thinkers in the Western world. And so I have like a fairly kind of academic mindset when it comes to these, which is so great for me because it's like endlessly fascinating. And one of the things, the reason why I preface that is because there's a way I'm talking about the 12th moon, which is to talk about like cosmologically moving away from big yin. The turn is, we've made the turn, right? This is the idea. We've made the turn from the bottom of the pool. The metaphor we kept using is the descent into yin is like basically swimming to the bottom of the pool, of which there is no bottom, really. You think there is, but like eventually you kind of get glimpses of, oh, is that the bottom? And it just keeps going, because that's what yin is about. You see what you want to see. So that being said, like there is a point where the shift happens, and that shift is called solstice, right? That's the winter solstice, where basically big yin or greater yin peaks and then turns back. But basically the solstice period, yeah, woo, yeah, don't be celebrating too early, because it takes a while to come from the bottom of the pool. Like you don't just go straight up, because if you go straight deep and then you try to shoot straight up, the bends, like all these different things, right? So we can use that, we can play with that metaphor to be like, you have to kind of come out of the depths slowly. And at the same time, big yin or greater yin, when it gets to this bursting point, just automatically gives birth to little yang qi, right? So yang qi has been not released, but incubated, right? And so there is an idea that like it's now you're starting to grow it, cultivate this sort of outgoingness, the little flame that you've been sheltering. Now it doesn't feel so vulnerable, but not quite. I mean, that still feels pretty vulnerable, so that's a big part of the 12th moon, this particular 12th moon, which started right after the solstice period began. And solstice in this tradition doesn't last 3 days or even 1 day. Like we're very scientific. We like, oh, this is the precise moment when it goes back the other way, and then solstice is over. The longest night, that's it. And that's not the case in the Chinese calendar. The solstice period just ended. Like, yeah, like today, yesterday, today.
2 weeks.
It's a chi note, and so as such, it represents a kind of plateau, where there's this interplay between how this kind of peak yin expresses. And so now it's kind of run its course and it's tipping on the other side, meaning that like the ascent or descent or dissolution of greater yin has begun. But like, yeah, it was a long way away from, either any kind of levels of a recovery of stamina, power, energy, like all that stuff is like, whoa, hold on, not so fast,
Yeah.
what Big Yin is actually representing also at one level is this experience of undifferentiation, right? So we've gone, and we want to use the metaphor of a newborn, like we've gone back to the womb and this is this kind of place of stillness, and then the sort of rebirth of Yang Qi, this setting forth, is this kind of first emergence, but like it's completely helpless. Right? Like there's nothing it can do for itself. A newborn can't do anything for it, not a thing. Its sole purpose is to get your attention, right? To care for it, right? So the field of nurturance is very strong, right? Because you're basically surrounded by mothers, and you've got this little thing you're trying to incubate, but you have no idea what shape it takes. It's completely kind of clueless. It's this first spark of what you might call differentiation. But we've been in a field of undifferentiation, so it's a very slow process by which this whole notion of discernment is really important. So I was thinking about this on the way here. Newborns, toddlers, whatever, they sort of occupy their own little world. We have no idea like what it is. You're kind of constantly asking them and training them in your language to get them to tell you what's up. Like, do you need a diaper, poopy? Like you're making a fool of yourself to try to get them to respond in a way that you recognize, but you have no idea what their world is. And this is sort of the essence of Ox. They come with instructions. They come with their own agenda, right? That's the notion behind. I used to think like, as born in a Western culture, tabula rasa, or are we just what we're programmed to be, and or do we come, with innate, and it's a completely kind of bogus argument because the assumptions involved. But like basically, from a Chinese standpoint, of course, you're not here. You don't even take the form that you take without some level of instruction, without some kind of transmission of knowledge. Sort of an innate, inherent, so much so you can't even recognize your prejudices and assumptions already present, baked in. Like kid likes peaches, hates broccoli. Like these sort of elemental kinds of discernments are already in place. And it's not just true of newborns, it's true of ourselves. We get down to this place of undifferentiation, our very incarnation actually carries a level of discernment sort of baked in. You don't have to try. And that's the whole point around Ox. Like, you don't have to try. Like, what you have established, this is the nature of convention. You should appreciate it, and Ox moon is an earth moon of 4 earth moons. It represents transition between seasons. So it's just as potent in that regard as like a dragon. But it's saying, this is like kind of the core set of conditions that basically make up your incarnation. You should embrace them. And for the Chinese, obviously defined a lot by family, right? So you have your core relationships and you stay with it. And you have, so we can extrapolate that in our culture to like routine. And the things are already set. Don't make any big changes. Conserve your chi. It'll go a lot longer if you're just using the momentum that you saved, right? We're not generating any new momentum. That's not on the table, folks. Like, it's really about using what you've saved when you went into the journey, and also relying on the sort of inherent momentum of the things that are already well established, quite possibly pre your lifetime, and that you're just riding through on that kind of momentum. And that serves as kind of a foundation, for how you begin again. And so in that, there's a couple different things that are really amazing about that. And of course, it's like incredibly vulnerable. It is super tender, and there's a depth and a sincerity to it that you can't really describe. It's just those relationships that are like, dude, or like those connections that you have with people that like, that your life wouldn't be what it is if you didn't have them. Like, in your life, right? So I think I can't really give too many more words to that. I think everybody knows what that feels like. That's kind of the whole point of Ox. It's like, yeah, you should recognize that. You find those places of affinity, and that actually opens you up to a couple different things. First is a tradition that Ming talked about of forgetfulness, like meaning to say that, okay, everybody's kind of in a place of, oh, well, it can't come soon enough. Okay. Everybody knows, everybody right now is like, I mean, we just want to get to spring, like what do we got to do to just make it, and so that in that kind of like place, there's an opportunity to, it goes under the notion of Ganying. And Ganying is literally translated as stimulus response, but it is a cosmological principle of pre-Taoist, proto-Taoist thought. It's very prominent in the Huainanzi, and Ming talked about it a lot. It's a principle in the calendar of the 12th moon, first moon, second moon, third moon. In this particular year, in a rabbit year, particularly, it will be influential, into the summer, like this notion of Ganying. And stimulus response means that once you've reached this place of undifferentiation and you are developing discernment, right? You're basically relying on something that's pre-thought, like rational, laid out. Well, I should do this because I'm gonna get that, and da da da. Like all of that is about differentiation. All of that is about elaboration. All of that is kind of far down the line. Here, when you talk about Ganying, it's mostly correlative, meaning that, like, in the Western culture, correlation may not be causation, but it sure does carry a hell of a lot of meaning. Like it does, it carries us. Correlations carry us, and that's basically to say we make associations with what's valuable, kind of instinctually, and that's something that this particular tradition takes very seriously, because that's the beginning of how we make discernments. We make connections, affinities, resonance with people, places, and things, even ideas. And it's very hard for us, I think, for me, as a native to this culture, because we want to turn it into a weapon. We want to turn it into something, be like, I got laser focus because I'm, resonance. Like it's you gotta slow down. You can't put gas in that tank. In fact, the less the more you strip away, and the less and the slower you move, and the less thought you put into the situation, by and large, you already know what you need. And this is like the inherent trait. Like this is what I mean by like newborns already have an agenda. And it's not just to get fed. As soon as they start moving, you have no idea what, and they're not clueless. I mean, they're clueless by our standard, but there's something going on, And so in the same kind of way, that's available for us, because we've gone to these places and made it, like winter is something you survive, right? Just like summer. So there's a lot of people who didn't make it. A lot of people who died. Like they took that threshold as an exit, and that's an auspicious thing. That's a good time to go. Good for them. So now we're on the other side, and the idea is we're rebuilding.
Shout out to the people that just died. A lot of people dying right now.
Yeah. So it's so that's you can talk about Ganying, and I'm working on this. I've been studying Ganying ever since I heard it's like 5 years in a row. Just like really trying to grasp, like, what are we talking about? Like, how do you describe this? And it is these kind of correlations or these associations. And Chinese mind is associative by nature. Everything about Chinese mind is associative. So this is a kind of cornerstone of all Chinese thought and science, is this associative quality. Gan Yin is the essence of that. It is the sheer principle of relatedness and reciprocity as not something that's a moral condition where we judge somebody's actions by. It's just what we are. It's like what we do. It's already happening, you know. So it's our job not to weaponize resonance, but to slow down and like pay attention to what those things are. For you, for me, for us, like, you know, and it can be a time, because this is also a place for forgetfulness, to be like, all right, all relationships on hold. Like core ones I see all the time, like, you know, we're just carrying on. But like this is a moment, you know, can be a moment. There actually, I wrote about this for tomorrow. There are actually really interesting moments where you recognize this relationship is a little shallow for me, or whatever, you know, like, sorry, it's not me, it's you, you know, me, you know. So it's like, it's just this opportunity to take it in hand. Like, what does this, you know, relationship speak to in me? Like, what am I, if you really want to get analytical about it, you can go there, but it's like almost more a gut feeling. Like, I haven't talked to that person all winter. You know, because in the spring festival is when you go to everybody's house and you bring them gifts and you eat food together. And that is the reinitiation of all those relationships. Right. So, and so, yeah, there's no pressure. Like, it's not like you have to like do an inventory every winter. It's just, there's an opportunity for, you know, in your own self-cultivation and relationships, how well you work together, what's the resonance, what's the level of reciprocity, you know. Again, like, it isn't anything to weaponize. You know, it's a consideration of the interior, the heart, you know, like where you are with people, places, and things. You know, so it could be very good time for, you know, stewing on the resolutions. Why not? You know, kind of sitting with, you know, what's happening. Playing into the rabbit year, there is this, you know, I would encourage people to get used to this kind of interior place, because we're going to be spending most of the year there. Even if there is like activity in the world, one of the metaphors that I'm using for water rabbit year is a carousel lantern. You know these things? These carousel lanterns. So it's like a square, a circle and a square. And the square is the paper, and a colored paper maybe, and the carousel is what turns, or it has etchings or whatever on the outside of the square, and then the light itself turns, or the etchings are on the inside and it goes through the colored paper, whatever. Point is that the carousel lantern is a light that has shapes traveling around the wall, right? Depending on whatever it is that's carved on the inside. And so this idea that, very Buddhist idea, that like your whole world that you inhabit, just so you know, is a reflection of what's happening inside. So this is the invitation of the rabbit year, meaning that like rabbit chi is in and down, and your yang chi should already be inside, right? It should already be, you should have an ember kind of like holding tight on the inside. So instead of actually letting that out into the world, it's going to grow where it's at.
Did you just say rabbit chi goes in and down?
In and down. In and down.
Does every animal have a quality of chi?
Yeah.
We're gonna have to revisit that.
Yeah.
Segment.
I mean, but it's also it's yin rabbit, so it's in and down, but it's water as well, which is in and way down, like back to the bottom of the pool kind of thing. So it, you know, not to say that there won't be outward activity, but there will be a deep connection between what's held inside and the light that's growing within, and what's being seen and engaged in the outer world. So there is this kind of opportunity, this not the most comfortable place for horses, but like, because they're not really interested in looking at the subtext of anything, but the subtext is just clearly available all year long. And like some people might be overwhelmed by that, and others might be really emboldened, and like it might be a place of like great discovery, inward discovery. And it could also be an incredible place of friction. I mean, this is all jumping ahead a lot, but 1963 was not a peaceful year. Just so you know.
And that was our last
Water rabbit. Yeah. So I mean, there's interior tension as well as exterior tension, which is a lot of what the water tiger was about. Like, I don't like this, the kind of thing. So this, the emotion that I put out for the water tiger was one of discontent. Don't like this, and the potential emotion, negative emotion for the water rabbit, motivating emotion, just like discontent for the water tiger, motivating emotion for a water rabbit would be, desperation. Yeah.
And rabbits don't do well in desperation. That's when they get dangerous, right?
Right. So there is great, it really depends on like how well your environment nurtures you, both at a macro and a micro level, right? So that's something to think about. Again, I'm jumping ahead, but like, Ming in his last rabbit year talk, and then Brooke and I have been talking about this. Is a fantastic idea of being in a culture that that praises hope and teaches hopelessness. That kind of like, really, really preaching hope, and then getting to a place where that hope might actually be fulfilled, and then teaching hopelessness. Not this time.
Wow.
Not this time. Maybe next time. Not this time. So that's the pattern, very dangerous pattern that Ming spoke to last 12 years ago. And, so like that hasn't gotten any better. So that's a kind of thing that's why hope is very dangerous. Not to say that people shouldn't hope, but like hope is not actually what pushes anything across.
It's kind of like the opposite, because we have calamity then happily ever after, right? Versus
Chinese tradition is very practical.
Yeah,
they don't want to hear the hope shit. They want to be like, well, how much money is your pocket? Like
very Chinese.
I mean, do you have the resources to pull it off? Or are you just talking? And like we think, obviously in this culture, we think that talking is a commodity. Obviously,
Wow.
we are right now doing this.
Hard reflection.
So, wow, I got down the field there a bit. But yeah, Ganying, and like, so paying attention, this is an opportunity, for deep self-reflection. And also carrying on and holding a container. This is not a time for radical change. It's just like paying attention, like the most you should do if you're going to, the most would be like changing your phone number and not calling those people again. That's the most that I would suggest anybody do. If they failed, call. Yeah. And I do know a dragon who's currently doing
Okay.
you know.
Well, one point that you made that really stood out to me is don't rush to start, or I'm paraphrasing, right?
Don't rush the rabbit.
Because here we are, you think a rabbit runs around, I'm late, I'm late, I'm late. You would think, here we are, winter solstice, days are not getting longer. You'd think, Happy New Year. You'd think, ready, set, go.
Right.
Right? It's in our culture, on your mark, set, go.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
However, you're saying, New Year, take it easy.
Yeah, I mean, New Year hasn't started yet. Like that in the Chinese calendar, spring is not even, we're not even close. I mean, we just crossed the halfway point of winter. I mean, a little bit more than halfway. So and consider that the configuration of the start of the water rabbit year is actually kind of early. Like the next time we talk, we're talking about the new year.
I'm not gonna get to talk to you till next year.
Yeah, this is it.
Joke never gets tired.
Uh, so yeah, I mean, it's, we're on we're 2 weeks away from the beginning of the new year. Feel like spring? No, not so much. Yeah, not really. And so there is a way in which the calendar kind of like preempts itself. Like, so the first moon of the water rabbit year will have still have two weeks of winter, like before spring actually starts. So like the calendar, kind of overlaps a little bit, and so it's moved up. But the actual indicator for the beginning of spring doesn't happen till later. But spring itself is not like manifestation.
That's true.
Sorry to say, like,
oh,
yeah, it's like, yeah, let me see if I can touch my toes still, like, it's that kind of, like, I work out the kinks and like see if I'm not longer stiff, and like I'll just go for a walk.
So then we're looking for fulfillment in the fall.
Well, I mean, the manifestation moons are always summer, and then the fall is about like taking stock. I think that the big dangers of the first moon, because it is a tiger moon.
Did you guys notice that laugh?
Yeah, like
the big danger.
What I like about this coming year is that the elements of the moons themselves are actually pretty like they sort of geared toward production, meaning that there's no hesitation. There's a fluidity to the elemental unfolding of the moons themselves. You got a wood tiger, which is its native element, 2 wood rabbit moons, etc. Fire, dragon. So it's like it's pretty forward going, and then a whole year of a water rabbit who's like, I don't know, maybe, let me think about it. What do you think? This kind of equivocation, and or wallflower. It's the wallflower rabbit. So it's not particularly forward going. It needs to think about things a lot before it actually does anything productive. And even then, like it's not in productivity, folks. Like not really for water rabbit. It's in connection. The rabbits are about connection. If we do things together and we do things fun, and like, and not necessarily even fun, but like we can be productive in our connections together, but it's really about connection. Like it's not about what we do, it's how we do it. We do it together, right? So it's in the trine, the family trine. It's that the kind of feeling of connectedness that rabbits, and safety, security that rabbits are looking for. We can make them highly motivated, but in a water rabbit year to the point of desperation as well, right? So you got to track what your needs are, because like in a water rabbit year, you're going to feel them. And if you're not really attending to that, especially in this early moon of the water tiger year, if you've been repressing and denying like the entirety of the water tiger year, man, look out. I wouldn't want to be around that person. Like, because water rabbit's not going to help. It's gonna kind of gently and maybe a little more stubbornly kind of push on those sensitive bits, to like really, to be acknowledged. Isn't a psychological thing? It's like, it's a chi condition, it's just the environment that's kind of like, why is everybody so sensitive, as a self-defense mechanism to their own sensitivity. I mean, it can go on and on, all the different ways in which people don't address what their experience actually is. And in a water rabbit year, you're going to feel not just my experience, but yours potentially. And like anybody at the table, like comes in crying, having a bad day, I might sour my mood. Like this is the world that we live in, this kind of cross-contaminated interconnection. Here, this I'm starting to get off track, but like it's just to say that like that's the sort of atmosphere that we're going into. So when it comes to getting ready for that, number one, it's not about productivity, it's about connection. And the reciprocity that you're just doing because you're connected. That's how you are as a creature, as a being in the world. They're unavoidable. So that could be a very safe place because you feel good about the people around you, and it could be a really neurotic place because you don't feel good about the people around you. Macro, micro.
That's really curious to me, the kind of parallel of a rabbit in that they appreciate safety, and in that safety they can express fully.
Yeah.
And they hate danger, and when they feel threat, that's when they're most dangerous.
Right.
And so it's like when they're safe, they can excel. When they're in danger,
they can be the danger.
They can be the danger.
And there's plenty of stories of rabbits push their limit because they are incredibly tolerant. All the, pigs, goats, and rabbits, well, not as much goats, but like pigs, pigs and rabbits, dogs, very tolerant, because their whole chi condition is based on connection. Yeah. So, they're like, well, this is what I got. I'm working with it. Whereas the tiger would be like, later, like they just walk out the door. Eventually. So, coming back to the ox moon, yes, the answer to the question is like, don't be in a hurry, think slow and steady. Be the tortoise before the rabbit comes around. Like be the slow, be the very, very slow. And like, if you come around to like starting things in April, good for you. That means you actually listen to yourself and not to the narrative that you're supposed to be productive on January 1st. That you actually clocked your own tempo in real time. So if it didn't like emerge, like April comes around, you're like, I've been sitting on a bunch of things. Now I'm ready to do it. Like, good, great, perfect. Like that's perfectly in alignment with the time. Because better to actually do things well than to do things, impulsively, which is the risk in the first move, and wreck it. Yeah, and wreck it thoroughly. And then you internalize the inhibition even further. And then you're like, well, I blew it. And then you spend the next 6 months lamenting. Don't do that. Like actually seek support. Work together. Tiger Chi is amazing in the sense that it's very initiatory and explorative and creative. And that's some of the things that we got to explore this year, mostly out of necessity. Right? We were put in positions where we had to, necessity is the mother of invention, where I can't take it anymore, or, oh my God, I just lost everything I own. Like, you're just put in a position where you actually have to think on your feet and work with what you have. And there's countless numbers of people that have done that this year and have thrived in the process. Like, if we have this notion that we're supposed to be like inching up, increasing in our growth and productivity every year and all these things, this system will seem like no good to you. This is not, you shouldn't be listening. Like this, if that's what you want, this is not where you're going to find it, because that's not actually how this calendar works. Go away. If that's what you want, I can't help. That would be neurotic from this calendar standpoint. All you want is one thing. That's neurotic, and like, yeah, never increasing. Like, and if you don't get it, like you get, this is all the description of a haunting or a possession. So that's a topic for another time, I guess. Wow. But constant growth, not where it's at. So you have these kinds of cycles of time, and you're just working with what you have. At this point in the ox moon, it's be the tortoise. Don't rush the rabbit. And if you can do that, then you're kind of slowly building momentum and slowly building a foundation, so that when the spring festival comes, then everybody kicks back and says, "Hey, yeah, we made it," and then you're making connections and you're networking. Excellent year for rabbits network, and moving forward, collective and group effort, which is always the ideal. But always remember, and we'll talk about this next year, is like the classical music piece, Rites of Spring. Yeah. Started right. No, perfect. Yeah, like that's spring. That's spring. Go listen to that, and you get to actually understand what spring is. So you need to have a resource. There's vigor and volatility and like great energy and bursting forward. It's tremendous. And it can wreck you if you're not prepared. Like listen to that piece and you'll get an understanding of what you're up against. Every spring, it's like that. And we forget. We think it's like, oh, lovely. And it's like destroying us, like it's volatile, because it's this bursting forward of life out of the sort of frozenness. It's this gasping for air and desire for accumulation and differentiation again. It's the instinct, to run 40 miles an hour, break the back of a gazelle and eat the whole damn thing. Like that's spring, that kind of predatory quality. So you'll feel it again. It's good to be patient and then prepare yourself to be able to function with that, because it could be very easily overwhelming if you try to chase half a dozen different things and like fall exhausted and have nothing. Better to like, okay, I'm going to keep my focus in them. I feel it kind of coming forward. Then, I'm able to mitigate. It's not control, because there is none, it's just, but like have resources that you can survive the vigors and the rigors of spring. Don't spend your resources prematurely now, squander your chi, and then get to spring and be like, oh, I'm already exhausted, like I can't do nothing. So that's why it's always go slow, wait for the chi to actually invite you to go run, instead of like living by a watch.
Wow, that's so contrary to the story of like the ant and the grasshopper, who squanders his summer and then.
But that's an autumnal story.
Yes.
Yeah, that's the like get busy. We want summer all year long because we're crazy, and and it's very strenuous and it kills people. You shouldn't do that. Please don't do that.
So it's so cool to be like, no, rest more.
Yeah.
Don't start working yet.
No, yeah. Well, grasshoppers and ants should be sleeping. I mean, ants are invading my home, so they're looking for one place to sleep. I think the only thing that I would like, I did come with the mind to give everybody homework.
Nice.
Y'all know this movie Watership Down, or the book? Do you know the book? You read the book? The book's a lovely book. It's I read it out loud once. Like it's actually better that way. I think but yeah. So watch Watership Down. A friend of mine said this on HBO Max, and that's kind of, you don't even need to come to the talk if you if you watch that movie. It's all right there. It's all, everything you need to know. Yeah. But I'm yeah, no. You notice that my entire thing is trying to push people away? Yeah, go away. See you next time. No. You should be asleep. You shouldn't be here. Yeah, I don't know. I think it's most everything I was thinking about. It's very tender, quiet time, and embrace the quiet and stillness, and do things that you feel kind of called to do, but don't get worked up about anything. There's nothing to get worked up about at this point. Anybody who's telling you there's something to get worked up about is living in a different world. It's a fabrication. But of course I would say that. That ain't real.
Well, great segue to our Qigong movement of the day, segment.
Yeah.
I didn't plan this.
No.
I'm just riffing off the conversation, and that rabbit chi going in and down really stood out to me. And so I wanted to do a rabbit chi movement, just in that conversation of in and down. And so the movement, really simple. You just do it right where you're sitting, and start with your little namaste prayer palm. And in the conversation of in and down, we're going to open up our book, and starting from our pinky finger, we're going to curl each finger in one by one and continue through the wrist and elbow and thread through as if going in and down. Right? And then we continue on to that movement, creates this generous circle, and it comes right back to where you started. Right? And so I'll back up a little bit so you can get more of my immaculate body in the frame. Open your book, curl in finger by finger, trace down, thread through, continue to a bigger circle, and come on back to where you started. It's almost like we're going in and down, and we make these big rabbit ears. We come on back. This is my winter. Yeah, all the influences come together. Now, yin and yang principle dictates that if I can do a movement this way, I should also be able to do it the other way. And so, just for sake of balance, instead of open curling in and down, I'm going to spread, pull through and over. And then this continues into a big circle. That brings me back to where I started, to where I can spread, pull in, thread over, and continue. Practice. You may not have heard the question. Lovely Tiana sitting here to my right asked, what does it mean when one feels more natural than the other? It means practice until they both feel natural. Now, next segment. I like these segments. What would Ming do? We played with it last month. It is the last full moon of the lunar year. It's an ox moon. We're heading into a new year.
Today you probably have you probably have a nourishing within class and cook.
Yeah,
cooking at home and cooking for other people, building solidarity and connection, family, cooking with your family, like that would be. So yeah, that would be the recommendation. Like I said, those are going to be your primary sources of nurturance. Like you're incubating, maybe you can use all different types of metaphors. From an egg, you're still incubating, or a little toddler that's already running around. All these helpless and clueless sort of images, the things that you're trying to chase around and make sure that they don't hurt themselves. Like these are all very apt, for this time of year. That there's not much capability in whatever the instincts we have for what is fresh. There's not much to it. We think we have ideas, maybe, probably, we're like, it would be really fun, but they're all completely theoretical. Maybe have some, I've got resources. Wouldn't it be nice if I was doing this, but like the things that have the most gravity to them are the things we've been doing, and the relationships we have and we're still drawing and exchanging nurturance in that way. So, because Ming had that tradition and that class, and nourishment is like, really important right now. Cooking at home, still very important. And cleaning your house, preparing for spring. These notions of inviting spring means you need to clear the space so that spring feels welcome. Yeah. And like that's also reciprocity. That's also Ganying. It's like, what do I want to visit me? Then I should make room for it to come sit next to me, instead of like thinking that I could order it on Amazon Prime, and like have it delivered to my house. Like it's really about how you change your condition in order for the openness and the freshness to arrive, but without being like aggressive. Like I want a partner, so therefore I'm going like make a vision board or something like that. I mean, it can work. It can work. It should be a little bit more open-ended. That would be like, don't get aggressive with it. It's just like, I'm feeling the need for connection. Therefore I'm going to make a space in my home for guests. And it might not be here for another 2 months, but like I'm preparing myself to host that in that way. And there's great value. That's Ganying. That's the notion of Ganying. It's get what you give. It's what you see is what you get. And it's also like, whatever you need or want is something you should embody first. And that way it knows to come find you. So that's the idea behind like bringing flowers and putting them by the stove so they'll bloom. That's the classic one that Ming always said, is like, you bring the bulbs in out of the cold and bring them into a warm place so they bloom. And then the fragrance of spring actually fills the home and invites spring to come. That's how deep it goes, people. That's how deep it goes. Yeah. Well, it's but this is the cosmology. This is the way this cosmologies, people who practice this has a human way of seeing the world as not something that's like immutable and fixed and given by some creator God that's mad at us all the time. It's an interactive exchange. It's a constant place of reciprocity and connection. And so you can actually do something about it, just in your own daily behavior. And that's always the message in the Tongshu. That's always the invitation, is that whatever your aspirations are, if you actually have a beat on what your appetite is, then the idea is to actually wait and, for the moment when you can initiate these things, instead of like thinking the world is something to conquer. It could be something to cooperate with, right? Like that's what you want. Wow. But then, don't get into the whole, language of manifesting. It's like, it's very gross, it's so gross because it's very, it's not big mind. It's like, what do I need to do to get what I want? Because I'm deserving, because I'm a being made of light or something like that. Yeah. Anyway, thank you for tolerating my rant.
Drop science. This is the biggest crew we've ever had. This is a wonderful
They stuck around. Thank you.
Yeah, wonderful segue. Let me see if I can set it so you guys can ask questions now. Ask the questions. Ask the questions. Yeah, because I have like the security measures and waiting room is off. There we go. And then people can unmute now. There you go. You guys are now welcome to talk. You can talk now.
Oh, monkey.
Unmute yourself. Say hi to Seanan. Say hi to Tiana. Or not. I mean, Hi, who dat? Hi, Connie. You made it.
Yes. Is there an I Ching verse that he is recommending?
This particular time, or There's I mean, the one that was, the one that we just moved out of was 47, I think it was, that has to do with being in a pit and like refusing to relent and like kind of constantly fighting. Could still be very relevant in terms of, that's a good question. Okay, how about just straight from the Tong Shu itself? Currently, 46, ascending. Yeah, I mean, it's because what ascending is about thematically is being gentle, is actually trusting that you're going to get lifted. So put yourself in position to actually be lifted and be gentle, like meet the favorable wind instead of being like, I'm gonna ride this wind, like, yeah, chill out. And well, I was looking for that wind to actually carry me through the next valley. No, you got as far as you got. Like, so this, I think that the biggest, this storm is reminding me as on the way here of like kind of the beginning of a pretty major turn in my life, which actually happened at the last Tiger year and the core of it was understanding that the biggest lessons, I don't know if I'm going to say this right. The kind of the core fundamental spiritual, whatever you want to call it, like lesson in being able to accept and being forced to accept whatever the hell nature wants in this particular moment. So like actually being like, okay, cool, is actually the beginning, that level of humility of a major process, lifelong process. In fact, on the way here, I was like, it's so amazing. I can drive in a car through this, like and we take it for granted as like, well, this is the way the world is. I'm like, yeah, that's not really true. And we actually, even with cars, still have trouble. But one of the most interesting things is it was a big telling point. I was in Alaska. I was 100 miles north of the Arctic Circle in this place where there was no roads and it was just nature. And basically, our whole life revolved around what's nature doing. Because like if nature said go inside, you went inside, and if nature was like it's cool, come out, they'd be like come out, and then you make sure because there was no like what the forecast is, you had no idea, so you had to be ready if you went far from your home base to pay attention to your environment to know that like it's looking a little dark or those are clouds, I don't like those, we should head back. And it's that level of this is also Ganyan. This is that kind of basis of like exchange and reciprocity, paying attention to your surroundings. That's it. And then when we came out of the bush, we went to like a Walmart or something, and I was driving with my sister, and we had to pull over because it was pouring. It was like, and we both just had the instinct of like, let's just wait this out because it was just like, I mean, 10 times worse than this, just sheets of rain. And this huge monster truck just barreled past us and like splashed water all over our car. And it was just like, wow, yeah, you're not listening. Like not a moral thing. It's just that these are the advantages that we allow ourselves in this culture to not have to listen. And that itself has a view about what a human being is and what our allotment is by being a human being. And I mean, I'll say this to the day I die, like this is the number one problem, like is that not even the view. It's the assumption that you don't have the view, like that's just natural, right? And you take it for granted. Yeah. There could be invitation in that. And I think if I'm going to relate to this particular tradition, I can't do that. Like I actually have to be mindful of the view that I'm operating with. Yeah. So that's why ascending, I'll come back to your question, 46, it has that kind of, you are supported in being gentle. There is advancement, but it's not like aggressive advancement. It's just like, that's pleasant. That was great. I'm glad that came together. You know, like it's that kind of advancement, which is progress, you know, that is a kind of in touch with or in tune with your surroundings, not trying to get and extract more out of the situation, but actually being content, you know, with what happened. That was good timing. That feeling of synchronicity and good timing is a very good sign that, like, for that particular hexagram, that you are sort of in Ganying. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Fun.
Well,
Here. You better know.
we got my wife, Najia,
Yeah.
Maury. We have Rena. Mary. Hi, Mary. We have Norma. We have JG.
Like I was like calling everybody out.
JG. Who JG? JG? I don't know you. And Krishnamurti. Hi, Krishnamurti. Okay. Nico logged on and now Nico's not here now. Hi, Nico. Well, guys,
What tea were we drinking?
thought you'd never ask. Today we're serving our commemoration cake for the rabbit year. It is our triple rabbit tea cake. They are in, guys. Can you see that packaging design? I designed that. I'm really proud of it.
That's real
It's cute.
pretty.
That's really cool.
And we got about 10 tongs of it, so it's quite a lot of tea. And I'm selling it, and we're drinking it, and it's delicious. So come get some. Okay, will that be it? So stay tuned for next month's rendition. That will be the first full moon of the year, the tiger moon.
Yeah.
And that'll be a new year at that point. And be in touch, guys, because there's conversations of potentially doing a full like new year talk. And we're going to sort that out. So be in touch with us as we figure that out.
It'd be fun. I think it'd be good. Maybe several years of not
Yeah.
being able to like sit around and talk
Yeah.
to people.
We could absolutely do it here. We've also been invited to Orinda, to a conference hall,
Okay.
to do it there. And that place has a potential to be catered, climate controlled, you know, all that. So relative to weather conditions.
Right.
Yeah. The short of it is we want to host Seanan for a New Year's talk.
Yeah,
So
that'd be fun. Go watch Watership Down so that it makes my life easy. So come with your questions. Who's your favorite bunny? That's what I want to know. Who's your favorite bunny in Watership Down? The correct answer is Big Wig.
Mary Parks, this is so great. Yay. What's Mary talking about? Yes,
Oh, of course, Hazel. Put the black rabbit in.
All right, bye, guys.
Bye.
I have to do this.